part 2, Crown Vic 5-speed swap. On my way to work right now, I have most of the parts stuffed in the trunk. Transmission, full-length drive shaft, which fits in the back of a P71, which is pretty impressive actually. And the rest of my small odds and ends that I showed in the last video. Quick note, I also put what I paid for all these parts in that video description. And it seems like even with a tune, I spent around $2,000 for everything. So that's including the pedal, the transmission, the yoke, the U-joint, the clutch, and I used a Sachs clutch, so I didn't get, you know, some bullshit clutch. I got a real one, and yeah, so. All right, quick overview. Here we go for part 2. Crown Vic. I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you what I've already taken out. Things that are easy and nothing really to worry about, not really related to the swap, just letting you access some of the harder to get to stuff. So show you some key things to remove, and then we'll go on from there. A couple things you'll want to remove. You want to remove the wiper shroud. Very easy to remove the wiper motor and shroud. A couple bolts, you'll see them all. Front seats, center console if you have one. And then I just peeled the carpet all the way back to access what we need to access here, which I'll get into in a minute. Other thing you'll want to remove, if you have a 2004 or older, you'll have to remove your ECU, which is here. I believe on the newer ones, it's somewhere on the fender liner, but you'll remove it. There's 11 millimeter bolt here, one at the bottom, and then the actual ECU is bolted in with a 10 millimeter. So once you get that out, you'll be able to access the pedal, which I will show you is my next step. Once you get the carpet out of your way, you'll see a piece of ductwork here. It's a black heater vent, and it lets you get heat to the back seats. You can just rip that out, and what I end up doing is leaving it out, and then the passenger in the future gets all your hot or cold air. Now let's talk about removing the pedal. You have to get that ECU out of the way, trust me. There's 5 bolts that hold the pedal on. You can see these studs sticking out here, and then they're in a square pattern. I already have a socket on that last one up there. Then there's a 10 millimeter hiding up top. And how I get this final one out is put the socket on, and there's this hole, put a extension through it, and I use an electric ratchet. I don't fuck around with, you know, click, click, click. Just get an electric ratchet. It goes really quick. And then after you get that off, you'll have to remove this, which is just the brake switch. Once you get that out, you can install your new pedal. All right, now the pedal's out of the way, got it out of the car. You see this is all loose and wobbly. We'll come back to this later. I'll show you, you have to drill a hole in the wall. If you watched my parts video, you saw this part, which is the firewall brace, which now I can paint a clearer picture. It lives about right there. I have to line it up exactly. And what I do is I put the clutch pedal in, and then I line up where the cable is going to be, and I actually hit it with a punch on the inside so it puts a little indent. And then I get a hole saw, and I drill right through this, the hole I need, so the cable can come through. And then that cable will route right down there to the transmission. So let me put the car up in the air, and then we'll start removing the trans. All right, first things first, let me show you some things. You got to remove the drive shaft, which is held in by these. They are not your typical, but they are 12 millimeter. You will need a 12-point wrench to get those off. I'm going to use an impact gun. I leave the car in neutral so that way I can turn it and easily get like a wobble bit socket or something on there to zip those right off. Once that drops out, I need to fight with getting this cross member out, which is held in by these 4 bolts here. Two on the other side, and it's pressed in really tight. So I'm gonna saturate that. I'll probably have to heat it. And what I end up doing is end up getting a pry bar in here and doing my best to get it out, but we'll see. This time around, I'm gonna try not to have to remove the exhaust. Normally I would remove the exhaust from up there, those 2 bolts, but I don't know if I feel like wrestling with that and potentially breaking a stud on that exhaust because it's a much older car. So see what I can do here, and then I will shoot a clip when I'm wrestling to get these out. All right, I lied. I had to cut the exhaust, as I've had to do on the past 2. I cut it here, and then I'll go to the exhaust shop. I'll get this cat deleted, and I'll get those mufflers deleted, and my exhaust will be done. I was trying to sneak out the cross member without doing that, but it was not possible. This was such a tight fit. I heated it. I did everything I could. Finally got it out. So now I'll start working on getting that transmission out. But I gave up. I cut the exhaust. I wanted to wait a few weeks, but turns out I'm going this weekend to get the exhaust done. So this is the starter out. If you get a pry bar or screwdriver and push up on that, it'll rotate the flex plate for you. And let me grab my light. And what you're trying to do is, you're trying to access the hole on the other side. Sorry guys. And remove that nut. There should be 4 or 5 of them. I will let you know at the end, but it is a 14 millimeter and it is a very shallow bolt, so be careful and make sure you're on it all the way. And just like that, the transmission is out. So let's get another look. Here goes the trans. Here are those 4 bolts I was talking about that are bolted to the flex plate. You have a sensor here, here, and here. And then you have some plastic clips that hold the O2 sensor on. And that's about it. If you're not on a lift, do remember you have a dipstick, so when that comes down, it will be quite a bitch. So if your car's not high enough, you'll have to rip this out and then it will leak trans fluid. That said, here it goes, trans is out. So now we will get the new, well first I gotta lower the car down, cut an access hole, show you how to do that. Then we'll get our clutch bolted in. Oh, by the way, I did support the motor when pulling the trans out so it didn't angle too bad and I didn't ruin the motor mounts. So I got a block of wood and a pole jack and supported the motor. Okay, I have the flywheel and pilot bearing installed. The pilot bearing, I just used a 24 millimeter socket and a hammer, pressed it in until it was flush. And then these are the new flywheel bolts. You torque these to 80 Newton meters. Tighten them down evenly and get to 80 gradually. It's almost 8:30. I got done with work at 4. In 4 hours, I was able to get transmission out, all the other shit I showed you guys, and I got the flywheel bolted in. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna look up torque spec for the pressure plate, just to get it done right. And this drive shaft, this one's from the 2004, this one's from the 96. I was gonna see if they were the same length. It looks like the 96 is a tad bit shorter, so I'll have to see tomorrow. When I get the trans in, I'll line it up. If it's too short, don't get enough bite on that yoke, I will probably just switch out the yoke, which is my least favorite part of this whole swap. This is day 2. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. I woke up super early to just kind of get a head start, see how far I can get by lunchtime, and then, you know, kind of evaluate at the 6-hour mark. Last night I bolted the flywheel up, but today I bolted the clutch on. Some notes, these bolts here, you tighten to 35 Newton meters. And the flywheel, you do 80 Newton meters, which I think I already said. Now I'm gonna cut the hole in the floor. There is some notes. Pierre has some really good videos on this, but I'm gonna cut inside the car, I'll cut about an 8-inch hole, and then I'll also have to come under here, and you see this hump? This has to clear the tail shaft, so I have to cut that. Okay, this is how you do it. Pretty simple. This was here, cut it off, move these holes back about an inch. I probably went a little bit more than an inch, and then move these bottom holes back about an inch. So what I did was, I got this drill bit, and I centered it up, and I drilled a hole about an inch and a quarter back until it was about the same size. And then I got a grinder and just came up and met the sides of the hole I cut, and that was it. So that's the modified cross member. Your TR3650 transmission will slide right in. It's just a little bit longer, so you need to cut this so it clears the tail shaft. And then the transmission bolts move from here, the mounting bolts from here to here. Pretty simple. Transmission is in. I had a question about if my 96 drive shaft that was a tad bit shorter was gonna be long enough. I'm pretty confident the yoke is way in the transmission enough. Transmission is installed. Now, this is gonna be the hardest part of the whole swap, getting this piece out. I had a bear of a time getting it out. If you look here, there's these tabs. If you get a pry bar, just like my hand is, and you pry like that, what ends up happening is you bend the metal if it's really stuck. So you wanna do it a little bit at a time. This side, go to that side, this side, go to that side, and you wanna heat this and lube it the whole time, and it'll eventually break free. But this is a press fit thing. These bolts are basically there just to hold everything in place. But realistically, I think you could take these bolts out and drive a good bit before this thing would start to wiggle loose. Drive shaft in plenty. Gotta bolt it up. But trans is in. I will show everyone what it looks like inside and how big to cut the hole. I always cut a hole way bigger, just because if you're gonna leave the exhaust on, you have to be able to move the transmission like this to get it around the cats where the starter hump is. I don't have a trans in here to show you. So I always cut the hole a little bit bigger just to give myself some wiggle room, and then you can just dynamite the floor if you have an inch or two of play on each side, front and back. You know, it is what it is. This is gonna go a lot easier for you if you've changed a clutch in a car before, or if you've removed a transmission. If not, it's gonna be a lot of trial and error, and you're gonna be learning a lot on the fly. Just be patient and just know that it does fit. It just takes a minute. And I did mine with the cats on, remember that. I did not remove the exhaust. Those studs that hold the cats to the headers like to break, and I just didn't feel like getting into that. This project's big enough, and I only have about 2 days to do it. I started last night, which is Friday. It's now Saturday morning. Let's go over some wiring real quick. This is the speed sensor. I bought a pigtail speed sensor for a 2004 Mustang. And then if you look here, the wires that I connected them to were actually the speed sensor for the old Trans, which was blue and yellow wire, and I believe a red and gray wire. Can't remember, but you'll see it when you take the Trans out. There's a little sensor on the back. That's your speed sensor. This is gonna be my reverse light switch. This is from, it was on the Trans when I got it, so I'm just gonna use it. And what I have to do is figure out which connectors here, the wires on the back side, are for reverse, and my neutral safety switch. So once I find those, I'll jump my neutral safety switch to load the tune, and I'll find which wires are here, and I will splice into this. So when I shift into reverse, my reverse lights kick on, and everything works like factory. But this is really important that you get this speed sensor wired. Car's done. I want to walk through some stuff that I was kind of glancing over. I wanted to get it done quick. All in all, what time is it now? Probably about 13 or 14 hours. Wiper shrouds back in. This is 13 or 14 hours to where I can drive it home 25 miles. Let's talk about the wiring for a minute. This is something that's kind of probably glazed over in some videos. I don't know. If you're doing a 2003 or 4, I'm not sure in previous years, pin 10 and pin 12, if you loop those together, and I'm talking about the pin that's plugged in to your neutral safety switch on the side of your trans, the gear selector, that big connector, pins 10 and 12, you loop those together, that's your neutral safety. Pins 9 and 11 is your reverse lights. So you hook those up to the side of the trans, the reverse light switch. This fucker's done. I have to go to the exhaust shop, but even the interior's back together. Shifter in there. Same as my 96. So everything should be good. I'll take it for a spin and see how it feels. I adjusted the clutch cable a little bit sloppy maybe. So gotta fuck with that some. But realistically, not bad for 13 hours worth of work. Thanks for watching. That was part 2, or maybe part 3. I'm not sure how I'm gonna break it up yet. Thank you.